Hi, everybody. I'm DEENA REMIEL, serving up evil and oh so good. Do you remember when we met last week at the Distortion launch party online? Well, you asked a ton of questions. I'm here to answer them today. So sit back, relax, and maybe you'll learn a thing or two about me, about my writing, and about what makes me tick. Before I begin answering your questions, I'd just like to thank those folks who did ask them. I'd like to thank Amanda, Zeta, Heather, Chelsea, Nicole, Debbie, Briar Rose. You folks did a great job of asking questions, and I can't wait to start answering them. So let's get started. First question I'd like to answer is, what got me into writing? Well, I used to play piano a lot as a kid, and because I played piano, I started writing songs, lyrics, turned into just straight poetry, and then as a teacher I taught writing, and so I always thought it was important to show my students really good samples of writing. Where do I find good samples of writing? My writing. So I just started writing during class time, and then I read and read and read, and all these authors, all these stories spoke to me so much that stories started developing in my head that I had to get out. And so that's how writing began for me. You also wanted to know if I have any rituals or anything that I have to use when I'm writing. And yes, I'm kind of a creature of habit that way. So first of all, chocolate is very important in my life. And so I have my Snickers. Little fun size ones, so nice quick bites. It used to be peanut M&Ms. I've moved on to Snickers. Who knows what it'll be next? But I always have to have a little snack there. And a bottle of water to wash it all down. I also got this really cute set of tarot cards. Here, let me get them for you. Here they are. A little keychain set of tarot cards, and I've just been dabbling and trying to understand the way the world works, so it's really cool before I sit down to write to see what the cards say. Another question is, am I a plotter or a pantser, which means, do I sit down before I write the story to plot everything out step by step? Or do I fly by the seat of my pants, sit down at the computer, and just write what comes to me? And I'd say I'm a little bit of both. I do like to have my characters all sketched out so I know who they are as individuals. I also like to know where my story is going to take place. And I do need to know roughly where this story is going. What is that problem that my main characters are going to have to overcome? But I never know how the ending is going to be until I get there. That's the one thing I make sure I leave deliberately alone, because my characters tell me where they want to end up in the end. In that sense, I consider myself more of an organic writer, where I've got a rough sketch, maybe a few paragraphs of a plot line, and then I sit down to write, and I interact with my characters and the setting and the problem, and we live the story together. Another question is, while I'm writing, do I love silence, or can I have music playing or some kind of noise playing? And really, it varies on the day. There are days when I can sit in the living room with the whole family around me, the TV on, and the girls just going crazy, and I can write. Then there are other days where I need to be upstairs in my office right here, sitting on my couch, absolute silence, because I just need that intense concentration. And then there are times when I do like a little music, and someone asked, how do I deal with music? Because I lived my entire life surrounded by music, I make sure that anything that I listen to is unfamiliar. No lyrics, just music, And usually neoclassical works for me because it's instrumental music that I've never heard before. When music doesn't work, then I choose simplynoise.com for white noise, pink noise, brown noise, even rain. I love rain with a bit of thunder in the background. That works great for me. I don't have a deliberate word count per day, but I've noticed that when I'm in the groove, I can write about, between 500 to 700 words in an hour. So in a given day, depending on my focus, I can write 5,000 words a day. Morning till night, I can probably do more. Typical for me is probably around 2,000 words a day. But I really focus on the scenes that I'm writing and where I want to be by the end of the day. Unless I'm in a crunch, and then I put my nose to the grindstone and say, you've got to lay down those words, young lady. And I can do it. I can do it. I used to only be able to write in the deep, dark night or in the early, early morning hours, but I really find time whenever I can. My preference is all day long. But I do work full-time. I am a teacher, so typically I spend my weekends writing. Maybe when the kids go to sleep at night during the week, I can get a few lines in, but I'm usually kind of exhausted. Most of my crunch writing is during all of my breaks, summer, fall, spring, and any holidays. I take that opportunity to really get those stories written down for you. This next question is so funny. It's about whether I write in pen and paper anymore, or am I strictly on the computer? And it's really funny because I was just talking about this to my creative writing students, how I was writing information on the board and I was getting very frustrated with myself because it was taking too long. My brain was thinking so fast, but my hands were so slow across the whiteboard. I said, I wish I could just type this on the computer and be done with it. And so I was making lots of mistakes because I was missing letters just because I was going so fast. So I definitely choose computer over pen and paper now. It was very difficult when I first started writing to get to that point, but now that I'm there after all these years, computer, baby, laptop, keyboard, fast. Okay, so the next group of questions is really about process, how I go about writing my stories, and getting really deep into the creation and the world building. So, first of all, how do I make it all happen? How does a story idea begin, and where does it go from there? Yes, I do play the what if game. What if Satan was there in the middle of a near-death experience instead of the white light and angels and all nice? Yeah, I go there. I think about things like that. And that's how Camille's storyline came to be in The Book Waitress. So yeah, they just pop up into my head. I can't tell you when, where, why. It could be a song. It could be a real life event. It could be something I'm watching on TV that sparks an idea. But from that point, I like to start ruminating over the characters. I go really deep into their character sketches, creating backstory, family, personality, physical attributes. I get into all of that so that I equate it to a sculptor with a blob of clay. And for me, the blob of clay is the character. And as I add layers of personality and backstory and issues and flaws and good things and family and friends, that blob of clay becomes a sculpted person. And so I like to use that as an analogy for what I do with my characters. Then I come up with the setting. I can't write a stitch of story until I know where it's going to be. So, and that's a really fun part. I love researching where exotic places are. For the Brethren series, I wanted it to be where I lived, which is right by the Superstition Mountains in Arizona. For the book waitress, it also takes place in a place where I lived, which is a fictitious, sort of fictitious place on the eastern end of an island, Long Island in New York. And then I have a story that takes place in the Mesa Verde National Park. And I have a story that takes place on a place I've never been to, which is the island of Santorini. And for these places where I've never been, I research the heck out of these places, going on travel sites, going on realtor sites, going on travel blogs, talking to travel blog owners who have been to these places to get the nitty-gritty details, like what does the breeze feel like when it hits your face as you're walking along the coast on the island of Santorini. What kind of blue is it really when you see it? I can see the pictures, but can you let me know your impressions? So I go into a lot of research and detail about the places where we go. And then I get into the plot, as I said before, about saying, okay, loosely, this is where we're starting, this is where we want to go towards the middle, this is the problem, and from there, let's see where we finish up. Some of you wanted to know about how I keep track of all of the details, and yes, it can be really daunting. For every story I write, I have a separate file called an outline, which has all the character bios, it has all the plot details, and I have to go back from time to time, not just to check, but to change things up. If I decide that I want someone to behave a little differently, if I want some plot line changed, I keep everything current. So I'm always keeping the outline file open while I'm writing, also to make sure that, yeah, if my eyes are brown, they stay brown and don't go blue. That if I have long brown hair, it doesn't wind up being honey golden curls. Okay. Do I prefer series or standalone? I prefer writing whatever moves me. I love series. I love my Brethren series. I could write story upon story for them, and I do. The Book Waitress series, you know, is 13 parts, so I enjoy that long story with complicated storylines, that threads that some of them tie at the end of a novella, some of them linger a little longer and have an overarching theme to it, an overarching problem. But then I like those short stories that I've written, Ghost of a Chance, a lovely little sexy, spicy, swoony, if you will, romance, ghost romance. And then Burning Sage and soon to be released Immortal Dance. Those are going to be put together. Those are short stories and those are standalone. And I really enjoyed investigating those new characters. And I've come to love those. Even though their stories aren't continuing, I still love those characters just as much. And then we have Distortion, where I've known those characters for a long time because they originally were in the short story Picture Perfect. And because of all of you, thank you fans and readers that wanted to hear more about Jamie and Hope, I decided to extend the short story and really build on it and really engage the villainous characters and add new characters to create a foil for our main characters. And so I thoroughly enjoy going back to a Picture Perfect and turning it into Distortion. I know you're gonna hate me for this, but I loved writing Brittany and Bethany in there. Yes, I want to slap them around too. But I really enjoyed writing them. So it's all about characters for me and the stories that they go through. Whether they're standalone or series, I love writing it. Okay. More questions. So we've got a couple more questions about process. A couple of you were interested in how I deal with writer's block or getting stumped by a storyline. How do I get those characters out of the mess I put them in? Great questions. So first I want to address the idea of a mental block. And I don't believe for me that I get them. What I do get is stumped by plot flaws that I'm not aware of, or characters that haven't been fully developed the way they needed to be. So it's not so much a writer's block where I don't know what to write next. It's I don't know what to write next because I've done something wrong previously and I need to go be a detective and find out where I went astray and how I can fix it. Because I can't go forward until I fix an error that I made previously. If you look at your own work, you writers out there, if you come across a time when you're having difficulty going forward, I suggest you look at that first. Go back and say, what have I written that may be leading me down the wrong path, and that's why I can't go any further. In terms of being stumped by a particular scene, and how on earth do I get my main characters to get beyond it, there was one particular point in Relic with Raphael, Brother and Savior, and Serena, where she just cannot understand how Raphael could love her as well as his past life wife, who looks exactly like her, at the same time. That how, if they were ever to be together, when he looked at her, would he be really seeing Serena, or would he be looking at his dead wife? Would he be thinking of her? She couldn't honestly accept the fact that he could love her for herself alone. There was no convincing her. So when we would have kids, he'd be thinking, oh, if only I could have had kids with Serena instead of Serena. She just was filled with a lot of doubt and a lot of disbelief that he could even find a shred of love for her, given that she looked so much like his past wife. So for, a couple of weeks, I was just stumped, like, yeah, how can I believe you, Raphael? Because I always put myself into my character's place. How can I believe you? How will I ever trust that you're loving me and not thinking about her? Well, it finally dawned on me. It was like, wow, I could have had a V8 moment. Raphael and she connect telepathically. And all he had to do was send those threads of understanding of his thoughts to her down their connected thread for her to see. And so I'm not going to tell you anymore, but you'll have to find out whether or not she is able to see the light and believe him and trust in his words. The next question I have here is, do I ever need a sounding board when I get stuck on things, or when I just, I'm sitting here alone. It can be very isolating writing alone. Do I have anyone that I go to? I talk to my friends, and what kind of happens is my hubby's right next door, so I usually talk to him. I usually talk things out with him, and he just brings a whole fresh perspective, even beyond my author friend's perspective, because he's coming at it from a reader's standpoint. So he winds up asking a lot of questions of me, and I'll go, and we'll say, well, how about this? I'm like, oh, no, that would never happen. Or, well, how about this? I'm like, I think you got something there. When I'm stuck with promotions too, he helps me out a lot. It helps me flesh out some really fun ideas for you folks to enjoy interacting with my world and me. So my hubby is my sounding board, along with my friends too, because my writer friends are invaluable when it comes to the finer points of writing. So I thank them so much, because I don't know where I'd be without them. And finally, a question about my inspiration for Distortion, because after all, these questions are a result of you all coming to the Distortion launch party. Distortion was initially Picture Perfect, a short story that I wrote, and that inspiration came from a friendship with a cover model. And I started playing that what if game about, here is this man who cannot escape how he looks, and he uses it to his benefit for a career. But how does he then navigate his love life And so I played the what if game. What if one of his models crosses the line, blurs the line, distorts the relationship that they portray in front of the camera, and starts to believe it should be in real life. And so that became Picture Perfect, a short story. And because of all of you, I extended it into a full-length romantic suspense novel now called Distortion. I want to thank everyone who came to the party last week, and I look forward to seeing all those folks who are coming to the live and in-person launch party on the 5th at Claim Jumper in Tempe. Looking forward to seeing you all there. I want to thank Chelsea Rafferty for providing a great place to have some fun online, and I want to thank all the folks that helped me get this book into reality. My editors, my beta readers, my proofreaders, and then all of my friends and fans who have been reading and posting reviews. Those reviews are really important to let other readers know if Distortion is right for them. So I really appreciate all of you being such a great support and having fun with me whenever I produce a new book for all of you. So I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you so much for joining me, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.